Okay, so moving on, what recruiters don't want you to know. It certainly is, the behind the scene thing, which which now before we go further, I just want you to sort of take this as with a pinch of salt, because there are things that you might think, oh my goodness, do they really do this? So let's go to the next slide. We'll start with this quote: a good reason does not mean the real reason. Something I learned from my lecturer back in school, more than 20 years ago. Okay. So I think we're all guilty of telling some amount of, well, not necessarily lie, but to make somebody feel good. So that reason that we give them could jolly well sound like a good one, but it doesn't mean it's a real one. Okay, so let's start with the first question, with the first thing that what recruiters don't want you to know, and in the next slide. Okay, so recruiters look at resumes quickly. Okay, so I think I mentioned this earlier about looking for keywords. Okay, and we get the overall feel. If I should repeat what I mentioned about, at all levels, even, when people are the examiners, they have thousands to mark the paper. So again, they're just looking for the answers. They're not really looking for all the flowers and stuff like that. So I don't have to. I forgot the statistics here, to be honest, but I think if you Google, because different studies have different numbers as well, but easily maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds type of a thing to run through your CV. Okay, so if you're looking for maybe what you call a HR manager, okay, for a company, the HR manager must have maybe business partnering background, administrative knowledge, compensation and benefits experience, and so on. So naturally, this is what we are going to look for on the CV. There's no point of looking for some other things that are not there. Okay, so again, on your date, if your date says that he likes girls to wear pink dresses, then wear the pink dress, that sort of a thing. So that is the keyword to be attracted to that person. Okay, so this is for you to know that they do it very quickly, and they get the overall feel from your CV if it is good, or should we go further with you or not by calling you and so on. Okay, second is jobs don't always match the advertisement. Uh-huh. You probably come to me and say, then why would I apply for something then, right? Now we don't know what goes behind the scene in a company, because a new requisition in this case means the need for a job to be fulfilled. Okay, so let's say if you're looking for a pre-sales consultant, which is an IT role, they need someone in pre-sales, and then you come in for the interview because they say, okay, we look for someone in pre-sales. In any point in time, this can change for them because of many reasons. What's going on, the politics behind it. Okay, so and suddenly they say that, oh, we have an internal candidate already, somebody from the other branch is coming, so we don't really need this guy. So you see that's in the negative way of the result, which is the guy is not going to get the job. But sometimes it works out because he applies for a pre-sales consultant position, and the role says they're looking for post-sales consultant position. And again, the guy who was supposed to come as a pre-sales just left the company. So again, the job advertisement says post-sales, but here he is pre-sales. So it doesn't always match, but it can work out well for you, or quite the opposite. Okay, at the end of it is also the chemistry that doesn't go into the job description in order to hire you, because Israel mentioned a good point just now about the person that you sent your only thank you letter to was very nice. Okay, so that's the chemistry that goes beyond papers that goes beyond job description. Sometimes people hire you just over that because you're nice or something, whatever that appeals to them. Okay. All right. So the third one is, the detective. Now, I think with Facebook, the Facebook generation, a lot of us are guilty of playing detective, checking out who's who, what this person is like. But did you know that this has always been the case with recruiters? Okay. Not to scare you or anything. It says here, I back channeled you and found out the truth. Okay. So yeah, there are back channels out there that recruiters actually try to find out about you. Not necessarily finding out the truth, but wants to know what more about you, whether you can do the job, but sometimes to know, whether you're connected to this person that they are not interested in, and so on, what have you. Okay, so just to let you know, there was a real life situation one time where well, not once, this is just sort of like summing up some people's experiences, where a recruiter themselves, who was going for an interview, okay, they got a call from their future boss, which is probably the recruitment director or somebody. The guy likes her profile and said, okay, can you come down next week for an interview, for face to face? Okay, fine. Okay, here's what I need you to do. Be prepared for this, be prepared for that. Get these ready, these documents, whatever. And then at the end it says, and I also want you to find out 3 things about me that are not on LinkedIn. And so then the recruiter presents that to the future boss in person, whether it was personal or professional things that were outside of LinkedIn. Okay, so it just goes to show the sleuth that the recruiter is expected to be as well, to be able to find out things behind just LinkedIn, okay, about person. So that's that can be scary to some people, but yeah, so be careful what you put out there as well. Okay, so next is quota versus being humane. Okay, so what you need to know is, at the end of the day, a recruiter is a salesperson with a quota. Okay, whether he or she is working in an external company where every person that is being recruited, the recruiter gets a cut out of that person, or the recruiter could be working in an in-house environment for just one company. They still have a quota. They must recruit 10 people a week or a day or that sort of a thing. Okay, so they, in that case, to put it simply, it may not sound very nice, but they don't really have your they're not too concerned about your career as opposed to their own. Okay, of course, you need to match what they're looking for, but they are not too concerned about more than that. If you have a work-life balance or whatever. Okay, so they don't necessarily sell something that they believe in, because at the end of it, they want to fulfill the quota. Okay, so it is more them than you, right? All right, so moving on to the next slide is influence versus decide. Now, what this means is, often recruiters don't have the decision power. They're more of an influencer than they are decision makers. Okay, even whether they are external recruiters, that means people who have many clients. They hire for many clients, or internal recruiters like I've been in. You're sitting in the HR department and the company, so you don't necessarily decide. You may influence a stakeholder, the HR person there, who again is not the decision maker, or the line manager, for instance. Okay, they can tell you, the managing director of a company, who's a big stakeholder as well, says, I like her, but why aren't we recruiting her? And the recruiter can say, because she's this, and I think you need somebody better. And he can go like, okay, all right, I'll listen to you, the expert. Or he can say, no, I know it's she's not the best, but I want her anyway. He can do that. Okay, so the recruiter doesn't have too much power, but can influence that way because he or she is the expert in that field. Okay, ultimately, it's the hiring manager who decides. So the next slide would be on delays. Now, this is quite common where we come across delays and wondering, I haven't heard back. You know, like a date. You like this person. Why isn't he calling me? That sort of thing. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's bad. Okay. So again, like a date, you should not hang on to the hope of that job alone, that sole job alone. There's plenty of fish in the sea, right? So there's a possibility that there is another candidate because they're recruiting, whether it's from somebody outside the company or internally from another branch or something. Sometimes also there could be a budget change, okay, with the market crashing and so on, or not necessarily even having to wait that long, but that these things can happen and can change the requisition of the company, and therefore changing the objective as well. The team management all might change, and they themselves may not know what's happening, let alone to tell you whether they're going to hire you or not. Okay, and sometimes there could be disagreements with all these people concerned, the stakeholders, the HR person, and the hiring manager. Okay, so these are reasons for the delays, that you're not being called or what have you. All right. The next note would be, wow, okay, discrimination. I think this should be the last one because I personally, I feel this is the most controversial of it all. Okay, so first is talk behind your back. Recruiters, if you're in a recruitment setup where there are or a department of recruiters, right? There is that tendency of somebody picking up your CV and talking about you. Hey, look at this guy. Look at his photo or something. You know this guy, and then they start talking about you. And it's true. I've seen that happening as well. Okay. So and it's not really our concern. This goes on even outside of getting a job, in everyday life situation. So it's just something that might be a little bit shocking to us if it were on a professional platform, but it does happen. And then they also hire based on preference, like nationality, your ethnicity, marital status, and friendship. So let me just break it down very quickly what that means. Now, we have seen where the boss comes from X country, and then he starts hiring people from other X countries as well. Okay, so his tendency of hiring people within his own nationality, and there's also the race issue where people are recruited based on race, in a good or bad way, because sometimes in a bad way is where there's lack of diversity in a company. So they some people, they just don't like people from a certain community, but some prefer that there is a mix to add diversity in the team. So because of that too, they want somebody from a certain ethnicity, right? And marital status could be like people who are married, for instance, if the role that they have in mind requires 70 or 80% of travels, and then there could be a possibility that you're being asked if you're open to doing that when you're married with children, or they even do not wish to consider you because of that. They would rather hire somebody who's single. Okay, and sometimes they decide for you, where somebody's about to get married. She is based in Singapore, and her fiance is in Australia, and she hasn't even made marriage plans yet, but she has started to tell people, oh, I'm getting married, my boyfriend's Australian. And I said, okay, find something else who can replace her because she's likely to move to Australia. So things like this. Okay. And finally, friendship is of course like favoritism. Okay. Which covers all the other that we mentioned just now. All right. So with that, don't be discouraged. What we need to do is when this happens, use the opportunity to sharpen your job search skills and learn from others. Okay, and eventually, having learned that, you will find your perfect match in your next slide. Okay, you will find the final slide. Yeah, finally you find your perfect match. Okay, so it's not always rosy or professional, but getting a job is just like getting married in that way. Okay.